I'm here today to debunk a myth that goes on in Nigeria, the understanding that some people have when it comes to separation and divorce in Nigeria. Will I say a myth? Or let me say, I'm here to change the narrative, to educate you, to enlighten you on the true position of the law when it comes to this topic I want to discuss today, which is separation and divorce. Some people don't know the difference between separation and divorce. Some people believe that as long as you're separated from your spouse, after a very long period of time, it automatically amounts to divorce. It automatically amounts to the termination of the marriage, which is not so. So I am here to enlighten you today on the legal implication of separation and divorce, and also to shed light on the differences between these two concepts and the legal implication of both of them. So if you choose separation, if you choose divorce, I want to enlighten you on the legal implication of both concepts under the Nigerian law. So sit tight and follow me to the end of this video. Now, I'm sure that you've had statements like, "Oh, I've been separated from my spouse for 5 years. I've not been living together with my spouse for the past 10 years. My spouse and I have been living apart for the past 20 years." You've had statements like that, right? "Oh, she packed her things and she left my house. It means the marriage is over. I'm no longer interested in her. She left. She said she's no longer interested and she left." You've had statements like that. But the truth is that this statement, the fact that you are separated, the fact that you moved out of your spouse's house, or the fact that you've not been living apart with your spouse, does not mean that the marriage is over. Separation and divorce are two different concepts. They are not the same thing. So the fact that your spouse moved out from the house does not give you the right to say that the marriage is over, because the marriage is not over. It simply means that you have been separated. You are not cohabiting. You are not living under the same roof. You are living apart from each other. It does not mean that the marriage has ended. So separation and divorce are two different concepts. Yes, you can be living in different cities, different area, even different countries. Yes, you're not even in the same jurisdiction. You're not in the same geographical location. It does not mean that the marriage has ended. It simply means cohabitation has ceased, not the termination of the marriage. So until a court of competent jurisdiction grants you a divorce, you are still legally married. Okay? Now think of it this way. Think of it this way. You have a house. You are living in your house. And one day you wake up, you say, you know what? I want to go on a very long vacation. I want to go and visit somebody. I want to go and see somebody. Okay, I want to go and spend 1 year, 2 years with somebody. Now that means you have to leave your house to the person's location, right? To the next location. Now you leave your house, you lock up, you say, okay, fine, you're not coming back for the next 6 months or for the next 1 year or for the next 2 years, you are going for greener pasture. But the fact that you actually locked your house to go and visit somebody or to go on that adventure or that vacation does not mean that when you come back, somebody says the house no longer belongs to you. Are you getting the concept? So the fact that you left your house temporarily to go on a vacation does not mean that you have given up ownership of the house. The house is still yours. It is locked, right? You are coming back. It is not, nobody is meant to occupy it. It is your house. So you go on your vacation, but it does not give anybody the right to say that just because you left, then you are no longer the owner. No. It is the same thing in this scenario. Just because you are no longer cohabiting with your spouse, just because you're no longer living together with your spouse, does not mean that your marriage has ended. The union still exists, the union still subsists, the union is still very much valid until a court of competent jurisdiction ends the marriage. Do you understand? Now you may ask, why does this matter? Why does it matter? Why can't I just say that okay, we've been separated and the marriage is over? It matters because some people might want to move on. Some people might want to get married to somebody else. It matters a lot. It matters when it comes to property and inheritance and being an executor of an estate in the event that one of the spouses dies. These things matters. The type of marriage and how your marriage is conducted and the status of your marriage matters a lot. So if you have not properly dissolved your first marriage, it means you cannot move on to marry somebody else under the law. That is if you conducted a statutory marriage. So if you married under the act, you must dissolve the first marriage. If not, you won't be able to move on to marry somebody else. That is why it matters. It matters because in the event that one of the spouse dies, you as the surviving spouse can always come back to, be an executor of the estate. And if the person has moved on, it means the other person does not have any rights. That is why every parties involved, all parties involved, must ask the right question. If a man leaves his wife, separated from his wife, and he wants to marry somebody else, while the first marriage is subsisting, a statutory marriage is subsisting, the new person is getting married to have to ask the right questions. You've been married before, yes. What kind of marriage did you conduct? A statutory marriage. Okay, have you dissolved it? If he says no, or he say you say just know that something is wrong. You need to see the decree absolute, the marriage certificate, to be sure that indeed the first marriage has been dissolved. This is why it matters. This is why we ask this question. This is why we are here, to explain to you the different concepts. No matter how long, no matter how many years a man and a woman have been separated under the Nigerian law, if the marriage they conducted was a statutory marriage, no matter how long they've been separated, unless they approach the court to dissolve that marriage still exists. That marriage is still very much valid. Do you understand? So if you know that you don't want anything to do with that spouse of yours, what you need to do is to properly approach a court of competent jurisdiction, which is the High Court now, and dissolve the marriage. And you know what? If you have been separated for a long while, the ground of separation is a valid ground for divorce. All you need to do is tell the court that you've been separated for 3 years, 4 years, you've been separated for at least 3 years, okay? At least 2 years with the other spouse consent, at least 3 years with no consent. You just tell the court, I've been separated. Separation is a ground for divorce. So you can rely on the fact that you've been separated for this person for so number of years, and the court will grant you divorce. Then officially the marriage is over. And you can go ahead, you are free to marry anybody you want to marry. So don't assume that because a man and a woman have been separated for 10 years, you just assume that the marriage is over and the marriage is not existing again. It's existing, no. It is very much in existence. So do not assume when it comes to issues like this. Find out what the position is, find out the correct status of that person. Now, let me quickly brush through the difference between separation and divorce. For separation, the marriage continues. For divorce, the marriage has ended. For separation, parties do not have the right to remarry. Why? Because of number one reason, the marriage still exists, right? So for separation, parties do not have the right to remarry. For divorce, party may remarry. If they want to remarry, they can always remarry. Why? Because the marriage has ended. For separation, parties live apart, but there is the open window. There is always that window of reconciliation. There is always that hope that one day they might come back together. Okay? There is just that window. It's there, even though they are living apart, no matter how long, no matter how many years, as long as they have not been divorced, there is always that window for reconciliation. Why for divorce, they cease to be spouse. There is no window for anything. Everybody has gone their separate ways. They are single as they can be. So there is no window. There is no window at all. Marriage is over. They cease to be spouse. Separation, they are still spouses. For separation, when it comes to reconciliation, they don't need to conduct any ceremony. They don't need to conduct any fresh marriage. They don't need to do anything. Okay. If they are ready to reconcile, they come together as husband and wife and they reconcile. But for divorce, if they want to reconcile, if a man and a woman have dissolved their marriage and the marriage is over, but they're like, okay, we made a mistake. I think I still have feelings for you. You still have feelings for me. Okay. If they are thinking of reconciliation, they have to conduct a fresh marriage. If they want to become husband and wife again, even though they've been divorced, they have to conduct a fresh marriage. They have to, if it's customary, they have to be payment of bride price. And if it's statutory marriage again, they have to go through the whole process of giving notice to the registrar, all the process, getting married under the Marriage Act. That's if they want to reconcile. So these are some of the differences between separation and divorce. Now, if a man and a woman want to separate, there are two forms of separation. They can go the informal way or they can go the formal way. The informal way is just everybody go your separate ways. Probably the man moves out or the woman moves out of the house and they are just living apart with different addresses, different residential addresses. They're going about their lives. That's the informal way. They do it on their own, they just move out. Okay. But for the formal judicial separation, we call it judicial separation. A party approach the court or parties approach the court and the court is involved, grants them judicial separation. Okay, so this is more formal, and parties have no choice. There is structure. There is structure when it comes to judicial separation when the court is involved. Because by then, the court is going to make orders, especially if children are involved. The court will make orders for maintenance and maintenance, custody. It is structured. There is a rule. There is order. So parties are bound to follow it. But informal, a party can misbehave and choose not to do anything. Like, okay, because I'm separated, I'm not bound to provide for the children. I'm not bound to take custody of the children. You understand that kind of thing? There is no structure. But for the judicial separation, when you approach the court for separation, there is structure, there is order, and there are orders that parties are bound by and they must follow it. Then for divorce, divorce is the finality, is the end of a union. Most people go for separation due to probably their religious beliefs, or they still want to reconcile. Okay, they still want the option of reconciliation. They don't want the marriage to end. They still have belief that this marriage will work, but they believe that, okay, I think we need to go our separate ways first to really figure out what we want. That's why most people go for separation. But for divorce, divorce is the final. Divorce is the finality. Once you are divorced, the marriage is over. That's the end. So this is just a little explanation on these both concepts. But what I really want to emphasize, what I really want to push out there with this video is that no matter how long parties have been separated, no matter how long you've been separated from your spouse, 10 years, 20 years, 45 years, if you did not dissolve that marriage still exists. You don't have a right to remarry. You don't have a right to move on. You are still married, and your spouse can come at any time to challenge anything as your legal spouse. And the person will have rights. The person will have rights because the marriage is not over. That same law, there was a contract between you, your spouse, and the law, the Federal Republic of Nigeria. There was a contract between three of you. So if both of you are saying you want out of the contract, you must involve the third party that was present at the beginning, which is the law. So that same law that bound both of you together, it is the same law that will separate both of you. You cannot do it without the law. You cannot do it without the federal government of Nigeria. You involve the federal government from the beginning. So the contract is between three parties, not even two parties, now three parties. That is why if you do not approach a competent court to dissolve your marriage still exists. I hope I've been able to pass across a very important information that you need. Um, subscribe to this channel, like this video, share, and subscribe to this channel and follow me for more content on family law in Nigeria. I will see you in my next video. Bye.